And being a good Catholic, we had lots of children. No internet, you just played out until it got dark, street lights come on, you had to go home. Bend over the desk, slipper on the ass, every single kid. And that's a bit perverted. I think I read one book in my whole life and that was called Kes. I can't finish one job. If I wash the car, I will wash the roof and the bonnet and come back to it. They'd come home, show me all the pictures of the beaches and the parties they've been having. And that's when I decided that's for me. Oh, I nearly died a couple of times. Forgot about that.
Welcome to This Story Is Mine. In this episode, we get to meet with Bob. I've known Bob for over 25 years and he's very close, very dear, very special friend of mine. He's also a little bit grumpy, a little bit moany, but always funny. I could do a video for hours talking about the holidays, the adventures and the times we've got in trouble together. But I won't, because this video is about Bob. So grab yourself a nice refreshing drink, sit back, relax and enjoy This Story Is Mine with Bob.
My name is Bob and this story is mine. Born in 64, not that I remember any of the 60s. My earliest memory would be 70s. So I'd have been 6 probably. Born in Southampton, Millbrook Road. I would say quite a poor family, as most people were poor in the 70s growing up. Didn't have a lot. So I was one of 7, 4 girls and 3 boys. Baby Jimmy, he died before I was born, so I don't really remember that. My sisters were a lot older than me, so they were more like an auntie than a sister growing up. My youngest sister, Carmen, she was only 2 years older, so she felt like a sister, but the rest all felt like aunties and uncles when they're older. I was actually an uncle before I was born, which is pretty weird. My sister had her baby on May the 2nd and I was born on May the 3rd. So I was an uncle before. And I went to school with my nephew, which was a Catholic school. My dad was Irish, so it's strict. He must have come over, I don't really remember too much. He must have come over in the 60s looking for work or whatever. I met my mother, who was, grandparents were from Gibraltar. So mum was like olive skin, always like out of suntan. And being a good Catholic, we had lots of children. I think I might have been a mistake. You know, I think they had 4 girls and kept going for a boy and kept going until they got me. I had a good childhood, a happy childhood. We were allowed out to play, no phones, no internet. You just played out until it got dark, street lights come on, you had to go home. And that was it. You get bathed in the sink. No microwave, so dinner would be sat on the hob for an hour, whatever. You ate it, or you didn't have anything. He was an electrician, yeah. City and used to till with street lights and everything.
And what about your mum? Was she full-time?
Mum was busy looking after 7 kids, working 2 part-time jobs. So she worked hard, really hard, and no money. So that's what I admire about her more than anything. Bringing up the kids, no money, working as a cleaner, working as home help, just to put food on the table.
And was this all in Southampton?
All in Southampton, all in Millbrook Road. Yeah.
You never moved house, it was all in the...
I was born in the house, not born in hospital. I was born in the house, and Darryl, my nephew, who's, you know, my sister's kid, was born in the hospital. But he would always end up at my house when my sister went to work. So we were like brothers. And that's what I feel like we're like brothers now. Even though I'm his uncle, he's like my brother. Yeah. It's a terraced house on Millbrook Road, and it's got my dad had this thing where he never finished anything. Anything he started, he never finished it. So we had windows in the attic. And as you drive down there, you can see all these terraced houses, and one has got a window in it. So when I drive past with the kids, I said, that's my old house. That's where I was born. Changed a lot now because it's dual carriageway.
Like, if there's 6 kids at one go, what was the bedroom arrangement? Were you
Cupboard.
really?
Well, no, because my older sister's moved out by then. My old sister moved out when she was 18, went to Canada, and I would have been about 4, 3. So just me and my Carmen, who's 2 years older than me, at home. I grew up with one sister, really. Me and Carmen.
And then did you guys like do family holidays? Was it lots of stuff together?
Not a lot. Famous camping holiday we always remember. Even though we're close to 60 now, all of us remember the camping holiday in the New Forest.
Tell me more.
I'm not going to go into too much detail. But you can say there's no toilets anywhere, so it's just a bucket in a tent. So all night, all you can hear. But we still laugh about it to this day. I wasn't particularly bright at school, put it that way. I think I had the intelligence, but just didn't imply it. Too lazy and wanted to play with friends more. So I was in the middle to bottom section of the year. Got in trouble quite a bit, hanging around with the in crowd. Had the cane on numerous occasions. Smoking in the toilets, all sorts of things. But being a Catholic school, the cane was used a lot. And I think one of the worst things was the slipper. Now, there's been a lot of thing about the Catholic Church lately. And now I look back on it, now I can see what they're on about. One boy naughty in class, the priest would get up, 30 kids, bend over the desk, slipper on the ass, every single kid. And that's a bit perverted. Every kid got a slipper on the ass. That didn't really hurt much. The ones on the fingers hurt. The cane that catches you on the bottom. I remember a teacher called Piggy Carter. Used to look like a pig. He'd always do it so he'd catch the end of your fingers, which really hurt. But then you'd pretend it didn't hurt. And you'd leave the room and you'd have tears in your eyes, but it bloody hurt. But Catholic school, I had a good time there. I had a good time, but I didn't learn too much.
Were you into any sports at that point?
I played football for the school and I played rugby for the school. I was quite sporty, quite good at football. Football now is still my passion. And got in a couple of fights at school like you do. Made some really good friends. And lost a friend. A good friend at school, Michael, Scottish boy, come from a troubled family. I think we were really close, hung out, played football, first cigarettes, first drink and all that stuff. And later on, I think he must have been about 19. That's when he jumped in front of the train. I'll never forget that. I mean, I was working abroad, working in America, and Mum, there's no phones, so it was letters every day on the ships, and getting that letter with a cutout from the Echo with a picture on it. So that was the first friend that I lost. Left school with hardly any qualifications at all. Didn't even complete my English. You had to read a course book, didn't you, to go further in the exams. I think I read one book in my whole life, and that was called Kes, which a lot of people can relate to. But I just don't have, I can read fine, but I just don't have the patience. If I pick up a book, I start at the back, don't ask me why. I think that's from football. When I used to get the newspaper for the football results, forget the headlines of countries in trouble, straight to the back page, look at the football scores and work backwards. And I'd done that with books to see what the ending was before, so therefore I had no interest in the story. Could say I'm a bit dyslexic. I think you can qualify for that. When I see a name, I would call it something else. I would say that with names of places, street roads and people's names. And another thing, which I don't think there's a name for it. I'm a bit like my dad. I can't finish one job. If I wash the car, I will wash the roof and the bonnet and come back to it in an hour's time. If I hoover, I'll hoover half the carpet at a time. Even a washing up bowl, I won't wash up the full bowl. I will do a bit of pieces. Then I go and put the laundry away, half of the laundry away. I won't complete any job, ever. So there must be a name for that. I don't know what it is. I think that's where it comes from my dad, where we had scaffolding in front of the house in Milbert Road for about 20 years. He just stayed up there, like the windows in the roof. I remember my sister coming home. We get a taxi home. We would never tell the taxi driver the number of our house because we were too embarrassed because of the scaffolding. You know, and the Milbert Road is the track. We say, oh, it's house with the scaffolding, and all the taxi drivers knew where we lived because the scaffold had been there as a landmark for 20 years. I always wanted to be a pilot or a vet when I was at school. And obviously my teacher said, Bobby, I don't quite think you're going to be academic for that. Fair enough. So I become a chef. I left home at 16 to go work at the West Meehan Hut as a trainee chef. £25 a week, but it was a great place to start. At 16, you get your own room living in, independence, and I used to travel there on my little 50cc, which took me hours. But I never forget the feeling of, you know, coming home on your days off. Great feeling. Driving home late at night, 30 miles an hour. Take you all day to get there. When you get home, your mum's there and your girlfriend's there waiting for you. So I did that about 5 years. Went to college, got City and Guilds, so I'm qualified chef. But then I decided to go for the fast money. I worked in a French restaurant, really good French cuisine, but the money was so poor. I got double the money to go work for Bernie Inn's, chucking steaks on a grill. So I did that. Had I stayed in the original job, who knows? I could have been a Gordon Ramsay. And then my sisters, who were working abroad at the time as croupiers, I think one was working in Africa, one was working in the Caribbean. They'd come home and show me all the pictures of the beaches and the parties they'd been having. And that's when I decided that's for me. Something I want to try. So then I went to Tiberius Casino, did the training school there. And within 6 months, I was working on the cruise ships in the Caribbean. Of course, I lied to get the job. You had to have 2 years experience. And I told them, well, my sister was living in Miami at the time. So I flew over there with a girlfriend of mine who I met in the casino called Jenny. Had the interview and they asked me how was my blackjack. I've dealt blackjack maybe for an hour in the whole of 6 months. And I told them I'm the best blackjack dealer they've ever seen. So they believed me. So then I got the job. And at the time, it was the biggest cruise ship on the world, called the SS Norway. So I got on there with my girlfriend, and of course in America, it's all blackjacks, no roulette. Well, one roulette table to 8 blackjacks. So when I walked into the casino, to my horror, there was only one roulette table and just rows and rows of blackjacks. So nervously shaking, which you'd probably know what it's like doing the casino job the first time, is nerve-wracking. Off you go over to there, BJ3. Oh, God. So I get there. Of course, the supervisor's coming over constantly for me making mistakes. But I had the personality to interact with the customers. So by the end of that week, they said, this is too much for you, you can't cope. But we like you, so we're going to put you on a smaller ship called the SS Southwood, which has only got 3 or 4 tables on it. And there I had my own private inspector. Just sit at my table and watch me deal with all the mistakes that I was making. And it just snowballed from there. I went on from one ship to another ship, became quite good at it, become a craps dealer. To be a craps dealer is, you're one of the boys if you make it to the craps table. And once you've dealt that, there's no going back. You're a team of 4 on one table. And the banter you can have, the secrets you can have, especially with the American customers not understanding the English slang. SD, And not, you won't know because you weren't a craps dealer. But craps dealers short dice. So when you pass out the stick and you're giving it to the lovely lady at the end with the low cut blouse, she has to reach across to get the dice. So the boxman's always in charge, and I'd be on the stick, and he'd be like, Bobby, SD. I'm like, no, too obvious. And he's like, SD. I'm like, I've got no choice. So I push the dice up, so she can't reach them, so she has to lean right over. Anyway, that happened quite a lot. And then, I don't know if I should say this really, the Americans didn't understand a lot. So we'd get the girl on the ship, she'd be like, I said, I've never played before, how do you play? I said, well, you get the dice, you pick them up, and you shake them like you're wanking a pig. She's like, what? Like you wank a pig. Wank a pig? Obviously didn't know what wanking means, so she's got the dice and she picks them up. Honey, I'm wanking a pig! And she throws the dice down the table. But we got away with murder. Having the whole blackjack table shout bollocks for no reason. They didn't know what bollocks meant. You know, we told them bollocks means good, which is like, I think is Yofi, which is like an Israeli term, which takes me back. So when I worked in Israel, so they have blackjack, you get a blackjack, you shout bollocks, which means good in English. Okay. Blackjack comes out, the whole table. Now they're all 60 plus in Alaska. They're all old. And they're all shouting bollocks. And it's a Dutch ship. The Dutch knew what bollocks meant. So when the captain was walking through, like he does on his tour, goes into the casino, and then he asks the casino manager why they're all shouting bollocks. And they look at me like, Bobby, I don't know. I have no idea why they're shouting that. You work 8 months at a time, and then you'd have 3 months off and come home with loads of money in your pocket because there was no expenses. I did it as a couple with a couple of different girls, not at the same time. And I did it as a single person. I've got to say, single person, magical. Definitely, you get a cabin mate, your mates for life. I'm still in contact now with cruise ship people from the 80s. What's that? Well, so 90s, say 90s. So that's pretty 30 years of friendship. You don't see them, but you're still in contact on Facebook. But you meet people which I've never met before. You know, I'm a southerner. So there's a lot of northerners on there. And you just become really good friends. But I would say it's the best thing I ever did. If I was to die tomorrow, and I've always told my kids this, don't worry about money. Money comes and goes. If you've got money, spend it on a holiday, because that's the memory is going to be there when I'm gone. And I've taken my kids when they were little to Disneyland. And I remember the little one, she must have been about 4. Fireworks are going off and everything. And she looked up, Daddy, this is the best day of my life. And I never forget that. So how can you put a price on that? The cruise ships were wild at the time. We were passenger status. We weren't crew members. So we'd go in the disco, we'd go to the gym, go to the cinema, we ate in a restaurant, we ate steak every day. Bit different now from what I hear. I nearly died a couple of times. Forgot about that.
You nearly died a couple of
Twice,
times.
yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, you know when they say you're going to die, everything flashes before you. And I've had that twice in my life. Once was the Jubilee in the 70s. I don't know what Jubilee that would be. Yeah, 77, Queen's Jubilee. Street parties, and boy were they good. Everybody come out. You know, they had one recently, just nothing. But the whole street would come out, every shop would close, everyone would contribute to, bringing things in. So we'd play all day, and then in the afternoon we'd do tug of war. Remember Fremantle Park, and we're all tug of war, and I'm at the front, and somehow I've got the rope wrapped around my neck, I don't know how. So they're both pulling, and I've got this rope around my neck, and no one's seen it. But I remember my whole life, seeing everything, even though I'm young, of seeing Christmases, all sorts flashing. They're all pulling, and no one's noticed I'm in the middle with a rope around my neck. Anyway, that happened, and that's the first time that everything flashed before me. And the second time was with Daryl going hunting for swan eggs. We must have been 14 or something like that. Going out on Redwood Causeway, wading through the swamp, finding what we think is a swan egg on a nest. Only I sink into what is like quicksand. And very quickly, it's up to here, literally, and I'm going down, and I've just got my head above the water. I remember saying to Daryl, quick, pull me out. He's like, no, you'll pull me in. Thinking I'm going to be, pull him in. And he put this little branch out, so I grabbed hold of the branch, but then I saw everything just flash, boom, 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 before me. That's twice, I think I nearly died. Which takes me to reincarnation. Being a Catholic and brought up with religion in a Catholic school, it's drummed into you every single day. RE, every day. Mass once a day, English once a day, religion once a day. And it's just drummed into you no matter what. You will believe this, you will believe this. And I did for a while. But as I got to like 14, 15, I started asking questions. And they couldn't be answered. The RE teacher couldn't answer. Because we would just wind him up. We'd be like, well, why? Why did Jesus do that? And he'd give an answer and say, well, why did he do that? That's when we get the slipper. Asking too many questions winded them up because they couldn't answer.
Punished for asking questions?
Yeah, literally. Well, he knew what we were doing. He knew we all pretty much rebelled against it because it was just drummed into you.
So where did reincarnation come into the...
Reincarnation? I've always believed I was reincarnated from the Vietnam War. People look at me like I'm crazy. Maybe I am, But I have this connection with Vietnam, something where I've always wanted to go. My mum always wanted to go to Africa when she was younger, never did it. And I want to do something before I go, not make that mistake. I want to do something. So Vietnam is going to be my thing. The connection is the Vietnam War. It just fascinates me. And it's something I can read a book. I say I haven't read a book, but I've read everything about Vietnam. I've read how it started, why it started, what happened there. It was just unbelievable. And what the Americans did. People go on now about Russia and Ukraine. Look what the Americans did in Vietnam. Half people don't know what they done over there. It is shocking. Napalm, Agent Orange, destroying the land. And then eventually, But when I hear a helicopter, especially like a Chinook or an army helicopter, every hair on my body just stands up. Every single hair. So I believe it makes sense. 64, reincarnated in 64. So I must have got killed in Vietnam, possibly. I think it's the music as well. When you see these Vietnam soundtracks, yeah, it's just I grew up with that music. I don't know, but I have a connection with it. And I watch any film that's got Vietnam, any documentary. Life after the cruise ships. Obviously, cruise ships I'd do for a year, maybe come back working on land for 6 months, go back on the cruise ships, and did that for about 4 or 5 years. And then I met a girl in the casino. Turned out to be my future wife. Went on the ships together, had a great time. And then we decided, being in our 30s now, well, me being in my 30s, she was a lot younger, time to get married and have kids and give up the crazy cruise ship life. It was a life unlike any other. Every day was a Saturday. Every day was a weekend. And I wanted normality. I wanted a dog and a home. So we got home, had 2 kids, got married, got divorced, like most people do nowadays. So that's when the cruise ship life ended, and I'd say my casino life changed. If I'm honest, kind of after that, I would say life went downhill, but it's just the excitement level completely dropped from getting married, single man, partying on the cruise ships, Caribbean every day, cruise all around Alaska, glaciers, humpback whales, parties, Mexico, to getting married. Couldn't hack it. Come back. Couldn't hack the married life. No reason other than just boredom. Mundane, paying the bills. Agreeing to split. And where I say I was quite a devoted dad. I mean, I pretty much split up when they were 2 and 6 months. But I would say I probably raised them as much as what she did. Being a single dad, they'd always be at mine, sleeping over 3 times a week, literally. So I worked back in the casino on land, and now for 20 years, paying the bills as a single man is mundane. It's just work, pay the bills, pay the bill. I did that for 20 years. Never missed any maintenance payments. So when the kids got to about 18, 20, sorry, no, before that, kids were about 10, and I just had enough of UK paying the bills. And I thought, I'm going to go abroad. I've got family in America. I've got a job waiting in Vegas for me. I can go. I've done my bit of the kids. They're 10 years old. Maybe, they're settled now with their mum. So I'm going to sell my house and off I go. Well, I didn't sell my house. I rented it out, which turns out to be a good thing. Got married in a drive-through, which was quite funny. Sat in the back of the car, pull up to a McDonald's window, half an hour. I do, yep, you're done. Here's your certificate, gone. So I got my green card, so I can live and work legally in America. My probably dream for the last 20 years, completed it. However, when you think you're ready to leave your kids, you're not. You're not. So years passed, I need to be with my kids. So I forfeit the marriage and come back to be with my kids. Luckily, I didn't sell the house, so I can move straight back in and work for another 10 years, paying the bills, going back to what I did. And then I think I lost my brother. And that was through dementia at quite a young age. He was probably about 62, 63. And that hit home, I think. I thought, what's life all about? Work till you're 65 and maybe, if you're lucky, have 10, 15 years to retirement before you die. That's not what we're put on here for. We're not put on this planet to work. And at the moment, the way I feel now, we're just slaves. We're just working as slaves till we die. There must be other reason why we're put on this planet, not just to work and then die. To reproduce, yeah, maybe. So then I thought, no, I'm selling my house. I'm not doing this anymore. Luckily, where I said I kept the house, I'd made quite a large profit. Spanish life is good. Very family orientated, no crime, little crime. Everyone's families, and a big expat community over there. And luckily, my brother-in-law was living over there. So I went and visited him. But what a lovely life, the cafe style, the food style, the late nights, the family orientated, and the sunshine. I think I have that seasonal disorder. I don't know what the proper name for it is, SAD something or other. I tend to hibernate now in the winter, which could take you back to the COVID days. I was heading that way anyway, but when COVID kicked in, that just sent me over the top. I just didn't want to go out anymore. But back to selling the house. Sold the house, banked the money. Now I think, what a great life I've got now, because I can buy anything I want. I can go anywhere in the world I want and not worry about it. And I'm not getting up working constantly. But I'm very aware that money can disappear. Quite sharpish. So I moved to Spain. I think I did another year out there. but got quite lonely out there because it is like an older community, and thought, I'm getting old before my time here. So I come back. I always bounce back to Southampton one way or another. So sold that, and here I am now in a little flat in Netley, next to Victoria Country Park, which lets me do what I love most in life at the moment: walking the dog. Two passions in life that I have: German Shepherds and Arsenal Football Club. Now, I've had, on cue, I've had 5 German Shepherds. So, Bebe, come here. Had German Shepherds from the age of 18 till I'm now 58. So that's, a long time with German Shepherds. As Ricky Gervais says, they're angels sent from God. Not that I believe in God, but if there were such thing as angels, I would think it would come in the form of a dog. The loyalty, the love you get from the dog. That and Arsenal Football Club, my passion. Since I was, how old was I? 6 years old, I got into the football. My brother-in-law was an Arsenal fan. And when you're that young, you idolise somebody. I idolised him, and he was an Arsenal fan, hence where I started supporting Arsenal. Not that I'm from London, I'm from Southampton. I like to see Southampton do well. I would say I follow Southampton. I don't support Southampton, just for my mate Rich to clear that up. Yeah, so I've got 2 daughters, which is my blood life. That's what keeps me alive. Without them, I don't know what I'd be like without my 2 daughters. And then I've got 3 granddaughters. There's females right through the family. It's just non-stop female. Can't get the boy gene. So three granddaughters are fantastic. Completely different characters, a lot of them. And the latest one, my little ginger, Dulcie. I get emotional when I talk about them.
It's fine, mate. It's fine.
I don't know why. I suppose I'm quite an emotional person anyway. So at funerals, I'm a nightmare. I will cry at anybody's funeral. Bottom lip will go. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be someone I don't like. It's just, whether that's evoking memories of mother, father, brother, sister, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's probably another reason why I come back from Spain, was the granddaughters are missing out. And I applaud anybody that's got grandkids. I remember my old friend Sue, she's like, when you have grandkids, you understand how special they are. I'm like, surely they can't be more special than your daughter. Can't be. Now I've got them, I understand. They are. They are more special than your daughter. I don't know what it is. Maybe because you're still getting that love from a little 3-year-old, which you used to get from your daughter. But yeah, can't talk about them without welling up.
That's fine, mate. That's fine. That's what that's what kids and grandkids are all about.
Future, I don't really see a future. I'm living like a dog. By that I mean I'm living in the moment. I'm not living saving pennies, worrying about my pension, what will happen in I might not be here. So, that's what I like about dogs. Live in the moment. Live for today. Take that holiday. Put that memory in your head. Take your kids on holiday. When you're gone, they remember that holiday. They won't remember the money that you left them. And I've always said to my kids, whatever I leave you, holiday. Go somewhere. I don't aspire to anything at the moment. I'm just growing old gracefully. I would say gracefully because I don't go out much anymore. Still like to go out once a month, maybe, something like that. But I like the peaceful, quiet life now.
Bob, you've finished that on an absolutely amazing note. And I know you got emotional doing this a little bit at times, so you got me feeling a bit emotional at times. But
that's just your personality coming through, isn't it?
No, your openness. I know you very well, and I know like a lot of my family know you very well, and I know you put on a persona of grumpy, bumpy Bob, but I know there's a lot more to it underneath. And
I come across as the grumpy, miserable old git.
But I think
deep
that's
inside, I'm not really.
I think that shone through in this video that. Yeah, you're not the grumpy, bumpy old git that we all know and love.
A Cole Pinkerton waiting to happen.
We're done, mate.
Right.